1177 BC, the year the world ended, and the terrifying parallels to today. The golden hour of humanity. You are standing on the docks of Ugarit, a bustling port city on the coast of modern-day Syria. The year is roughly 1190 BC. The sun warms your skin, and the air smells of salt, cedar wood, and the expensive spices unloading from the ships. Look around you. This is the pinnacle of human achievement. You live in a world that feels eternal, stable. An incredibly interconnected dot to your south lies the mighty Egypt, ruled by the god-kings, the pharaohs, who command armies of thousands and build monuments that scrape the sky. To the north are the Hittites, masters of iron and chariots, ruling the vast plateau of Anatolia. To the west, across the wine-dark sea, are the Mycenaean Greeks, the heroes of legend, living in palaces adorned with gold and lapis lazuli. You feel safe. You feel prosperous. You are a citizen of a globalized world. Tin comes from Afghanistan to mix with copper from Cyprus to make the bronze that underpins your entire reality. Letters of diplomacy fly between kings addressing each other as brother. It is a golden age of international trade and cooperation. You have no reason to suspect that within a few decades, almost every city you know, including the one you stand in now, will be a smoking ruin. You cannot see the cliff edge, but you are walking straight toward it. The first cracks in the glass, the change does not happen overnight. It begins as a whisper, a subtle shift in the wind that you initially ignore. It starts with the grain. You notice that the shipments from the interior are smaller this year. Then the next year, they are smaller still. The merchants in the market stop gossiping about profits and start whispering about the rains. They say the rains have failed in the north. They say the Hittite king has sent a desperate plea to Egypt, crying out that there is famine in his lands and his people are dying. You try to ignore it. The world is too big to fail, you tell yourself. These empires have stood for centuries. They have reserves. They have gods. But then the prices rise. Bread becomes a luxury. You see the tension in the eyes of the officials walking the streets. The global supply chain, that intricate web of ships and caravans that brings food to where it is needed, begins to stutter. Then the ground betrays you. It is not just one earthquake. It is a storm of them. Over a period of years, the earth shakes violently, cracking the walls of the great palaces in Greece and Anatolia. You feel the tremors in the night, a deep, guttural growl from the planet itself. Temples collapse. Fortifications crumble. The physical infrastructure of your civilization is being hammered by nature, weakening the resolve of the people and the resources of the kings. You start to feel a creeping dread, a sense that the gods have turned their backs on this age of men, the shadow on the horizon, while you are hungry and shaken by the trembling earth. The final blow arrives from the sea. You hear rumors first. Fishermen returning with eyes wide with terror, speaking of a confederation of raiders unlike anything the world has seen. They do not carry flags of a single nation. They are a motley crew, a swarm of displaced warriors, families, and plunderers. History will call them the Sea Peoples. You imagine them as a disciplined army, but they are more like a force of nature, a human tsunami driven by their own desperation. They are fleeing the same droughts and famines that are gnawing at your belly. They are moving south and east, burning everything in their path. Word reaches you that the Hittite Empire has fallen. The great power of the north, the rival of Egypt, has simply ceased to exist. Its capital is burned, its armies scattered. You cannot comprehend it. How does a superpower simply vanish? Then you hear that Cyprus has been overrun. The copper supply is cut off. The bronze economy stops dot, and then the sails appear on your horizon. The collapse of complexity. You stand on the walls of your city, watching the smoke rise from the villages in the distance. You realize now the fatal flaw of your world. It was too complex. It was too specialized. The farmers relied on the soldiers for protection. The soldiers relied on the kings for pay. The kings relied on the merchants for tax. The merchants relied on the farmers for food. When one piece of this delicate clockwork broke, when the climate shifted, the gears ground to a halt. There is no resilience left. The just-in-time delivery of grain from Egypt is gone. The diplomatic letters asking for help go unanswered because everyone is drowning in the same storm. You realize that globalization, the very thing that made your world rich, is now the thing that ensures its total destruction. When the center collapses, it pulls everything else down with it into the abyss. The attack, when it comes, is brutal and swift. But the city was already dead before the first torch was thrown. It was killed by hunger, by disease, by the breakdown of order. The sea peoples are just the executioners. The sentence was passed by the climate and the fragility of your systems. The long night you survived the initial assault, perhaps fleeing into the mountains or hiding in the ruins. But the world you emerge into is unrecognizable. The palaces are gone. The writing systems, the ability to record history and poetry, are forgotten. The art of making complex bronze armor is lost. The international trade routes are silent. You have entered a dark age. For the next few centuries, humanity will huddle in smaller, isolated villages. The grand vision of a connected world is replaced by the immediate struggle for survival. The stories of the great kings and the golden cities become myths, whispered around campfires by people who cannot imagine how their ancestors built such things. You look at the ruins of the palace where you once delivered goods. It is overgrown with weeds. You realize how quickly civilization can recede. It is not a permanent state of being. It is a fragile flower that requires the right temperature, the right soil, and constant care. When those conditions vanish, the flower dies, and the weeds take over. The mirror of time now, shift your perspective. Step out of the sandals of the Bronze Age merchant and back into your modern life. You look at your smartphone, a device made of materials mined in Africa, assembled in Asia, and designed in America. You look at your supermarket, stocked with food from halfway across the globe. You look at the news, filled with reports of changing climates, shifting geopolitical alliances, and the tremors of economic instability. You feel a familiar shiver. The story of 1177 BC is not just ancient history. It is a warning. You see that complexity implies fragility. You see that a civilization at its peak is often at its most vulnerable, blinded by its own success. You realize that the sea peoples of your time might not be warriors in ships, but the cascading effects of migration, resource scarcity, and systemic failure. You understand now that the Bronze Age collapse was a system collapse. It wasn't one thing. It was everything going wrong at once. And as you look at the intricate, interdependent web of the modern world, you have to ask yourself, how strong is the thread that holds it all together? You are the heir to those who survived the collapse, and the lesson they left for you in the ashes of their cities is simple. Nothing is too big to fail, and the dark ages are never as far away as they seem. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this video, learned something new, or simply want to see more content like this, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support truly helps the channel grow and reach more people. And if you have thoughts or ideas you'd like to share, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.